there's like a vacuum or something.
Yeah.
And so it gets too big and it gets usurped by certain individuals or philosophies or something and turns into something that it shouldn't be.
Like a bird of a feather mentality, a flock. Oh, I'm with my like-minded people. Oh, well, then one of those like-minded people stands up and says something that maybe you wouldn't have even thought about before, but you feel more inclined to agree with them because you don't want to be ousted from this whole new social world that you find yourself in.
It must be scripted. There's no way that can happen naturally.
If your philosophy and doctrine is correct, it should be able to withstand any challenge from anywhere. So why not go explore a little bit, talk to other people, attend events or whatever, and, experience some things and challenge your own beliefs if you're interested in facts and logic.
Comfort zone.
There's a saying that morality is doing right regardless of what you're told. And religion is doing what you're told, regardless of what is right.
That's a valid point, and I think you're right. Human beings are social animals. We do need to be together. We do need to feel that we're worth something to other people. We do need to show our own self, or have other people realize our worth, or want to be acknowledged for being a good person.
Inertia type person where you're just going to keep going with the flow because that's what your peers are doing, or you can be a little more critical. And
you are one of us now.
Okay, welcome to another Kitchen Sink Microscopy. I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we write our own music, so stick around to the end of the episode and you'll hear a new song. You can go to patreon.com/KSMvidcast to hear more of it. Yeah,
and I'm Casey Rochford, and we would like to once again welcome a guest to the show, and his name is Steve Jones, and we're going to talk a little bit about Camp Quest Northwest, and it's kind of a local Washington thing, I think, right? It's not nationwide, is it?
Oh, actually, it is nationwide.
Okay.
Camp Quest just recently came to the Pacific Northwest just a few years back, so 2013, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. So I learned something today. And then you had helped start the Pacific Northwest chapter then of Camp Quest. Is that correct?
Oh, there was a whole lot of people involved with that. There was this whole Rapture Relief fund, which was hysterical because we were wandering around collecting money, saying that who was it? Oh gosh, the California preacher,
Harold Camping or something.
Harold Camping, yes, thank you. And he was predicting a rapture, and we were wandering around in Seattle downtown, and telling everybody that in the event of meteor showers, volcanoes, and all of that stuff, we would have a fund for that. And if it didn't happen, ta-da, we would donate it all to the first Camp Quest in the Pacific Northwest.
So
it ended up working out really wonderfully, and we had matching donations, and it was plenty enough to start the first one.
So for the viewers that aren't aware, can you tell us a little bit about Camp Quest, what it is, what it's all about?
Oh, sure. It's a secular summer camp, very science-minded, just basically no religion. And it's more geared towards children who are non-religious or are being brought up in secular families who know what summer camps usually are. It's a bunch of kumbaya and praise God and say your prayers before you eat every meal kind of thing. But to get away from that and be more scientific minded, more goal oriented, more teamwork and development and talking about evolution and you name it, it runs the whole gamut of science. And what growing up in religion should probably be like for or without religion for children should be like.
All right, cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I never actually went to camp as a kid, so it wasn't really on my radar that religion had its tendrils in camp so much. So I didn't realize that was that there was this empty niche of a secular camp that needed to be filled. So that's really cool that's a thing.
It was really interesting when we went to the first one. We had it at Camp Kirby, and it was a summer camp that was basically used by Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and I think some church groups used it too. But all over the walls there was kind of religious propaganda and stuff that whenever it was all in the dining facility. So whenever we would eat, we would be staring up on the wall, kind of going, yeah, this just makes everybody in the room uncomfortable. So we actually started putting like flying spaghetti monsters and stuff over top of it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I did actually.
A very religious camp before we got there.
Yeah, I did go to camp, a couple different camps, and it does seem like a lot of the operations are funded by churches or religious organizations and things. I mean, the one that I went to, there was a little bit of that, but not too much, although I'm sure not everybody's experience. Your experience may vary, so I'm sure there's some differences for people in other areas. But I think it's a really cool idea. Yeah.
It went off with tremendous success. We got on the news. Chuck Wahlberg got interviewed, and it was presented in a way that wasn't holding a bias against secularism at all. It kind of left it open-aired, if anything.
That's good.
But the kids just had a blast, and they've been coming back ever since. And membership was like, or people joining or signing up for it every year just was doubling or tripling, and they had to expand outwards to other summer camps and expand the organization, and it became a lot for the original leadership to even handle. And I still get invites for these leadership meetings.
Yeah, you mentioned that the news didn't angle it against secularity, and I do think that that's kind of it's one of those terms that I think people conflate with atheism, where I mean they are related, but they're not really the same thing. When I think secular, I just think that there's something that isn't imbued with religion or spiritual thoughts or whatever. It's basically just presented as it is. And atheism is actually very specifically like the belief that there is no God.
Right.
And that might sound like splitting hairs, but I think you can. I mean, you've got secular Jews, so it's like that almost sounds like what do you call it? Oxymoron. If you're not quite sure what secular means, if you think it means atheist or whatever, that almost yeah.
I think atheist, obviously, not believing that there is God or not believing in a particular religion, but secular could include religious people. It just doesn't have to. I think it's like basically everybody, non-denominational, whatever. So yeah, but I think you're right that people do.
I would agree with that. Yeah, it's not inclusive to one sect, but it definitely is non-God preaching or non-dogmatic.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, and
Yeah, it's like you wouldn't turn away a Christian from that camp, right? It would be more like,
that's not what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to another point that I wanted to make is that there are certain atheists that do kind of carry that religious torch, whether they were, you know, previously religious or whatever. You know what I'm talking about, where they kind of bring this fundamentalism into the idea that there is no God, which by itself is just a philosophy. It doesn't have, or an idea basically, that, you know, there's no deity, there's no central tenets, or, you know, a book that we all point to and say, here's all the answers. You know, it's not a religion in that sense, but they still carry that mentality. Have you seen that?
I would agree with that, but I wouldn't generalize it all. I think it's a very individual perspective. After all, it is a personal journey when you come to those sort of conclusions, being agnostic or non-theist or atheist. But I do think it has a lot to do with the person you were before you became a non-believer, and what kind of an upbringing. And in other words, you're product of your former environment, sure. And like you were saying, for a secular Jew, yes, it's still all about heritage. Yes, it's still all about tradition. And the same goes for, you know, people who were formerly Christian or Catholic. You know, yeah, we still like the holidays, the Christmas, the family to get together and all the things we used to do. We just don't like the God part anymore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. But I do think that, I mean, I've kind of seen that, what you're talking about, Casey, that it almost seems like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like that whole community that existed in the religion, people have this tendency to want to get together and form a belief system apart from that, because there's like a vacuum or something.
Yeah.
And so it gets too big and it gets usurped by certain individuals or philosophies or something, and turns into something that it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It should, like you said, you know, a personal journey, you know?
Yeah. I think there might be kind of a natural human tendency to do this, but I think anytime you get around like-minded people and create an echo chamber, you start to get this belief, or, you know, this feeling that, oh yeah, what I'm thinking is right because everyone around me is agreeing, and you have this little bubble where everything you see is just so, and anything outside that bubble,
like a bird of a feather mentality, a flock. Oh, I'm with my like-minded people. Oh, well, then one of those like-minded people stands up and says something that maybe you wouldn't have even thought about before, but you feel more inclined to agree with them because you don't want to be ousted from this whole new social world that you find yourself in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I think at the point you're talking about, there's like a fork in the road. You can either be that, you know, inertia type person where you're just going to keep going with the flow because that's what your peers are doing, or you can be a little more critical. And
you are one of us now.
Yeah. I do kind of see that, like it's in you know, I'm like atheist agnostic just as a person. I don't participate in any kind of tribal groups or anything like that, but you know, I've seen it a little bit that there tends to be this kind of tribalism, this kind of the things that have nothing to do with atheism in atheist circles that kind of take hold when, you know, oh, hi Floyd. it's like it's turned into something different. And you know, Casey, I think you've experienced some of that.
Yeah.
Probably.
I used to hang around with this how I met Steve actually was hanging around with a crowd that was largely atheist. I think there was one dude that was actually Buddhist, but philosophically there's a lot of similarities there actually. So he fit in well. I didn't know him that well, but one by one I started to have conflicts of personality with certain people in that group, and it just felt like they were very resistive to outside thinking, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Because, as you know, Eric, the reason we have this channel is because we tend to have some unorthodox ideas about trying to achieve the same goals that most people are.
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of our ideas differ. Our philosophies and processes are quite different, but yet we're able to have a conversation about it, and that's it is the genesis of this channel. Yeah.
It must be scripted. There's no way that can happen naturally.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are still stigmas, I think, that follow you with, what you and your profession is, or, say you're in law enforcement or something. Well, geez, and you're walking into an atheist meeting group. Yeah, I'm an atheist, but I'm also a law enforcement officer. And where do you think some of the more left liberal kind of things are going to peg you for right out of the gate? I mean, there's that kind of thing. It's like it's how you're perceived with stigmas that are already out there, that you do get categorized, you do get shuffled into a little segment of the room, and people only approach you for what they think they can talk to you about.
Yeah, that seems kind of ridiculous, And I have noticed a politicization or injection of politics, I'll say, because I'm not sure what the actual word would be for that. Into politicization.
Worshipper sauce.
Yeah. I've noticed an injection of politics into some of these groups, atheist groups, that shouldn't really be there. I mean, isn't it more about religion or the lack thereof, and that should be the end of it?
It's in the name, atheist.
Yeah.
No God. That's really all there is to it. Like, I'd argue that you could believe in Santa Claus and still be an atheist. I mean, it's not I don't believe in fairy tales, it's I don't believe in God,
Yeah, exactly.
Often many atheists don't believe in Santa Claus, of course. I'm just making kind of like an exaggerated statement to drive the point home.
But. Yeah.
But the paganistic origins of that are interesting.
That's true.
Yeah, and I think
we'll have to talk to a pagan.
What's that?
We'll have to talk to a pagan.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, I could definitely bring up a former pagan who used to run Auburn Freethought Society.
Huh.
That'd be good. Yeah, totally. Yeah, there we go. There's another episode.
Speaking of Auburn, I forgot to plug at the head of the show. You are in the Auburn.
I'm now the organizer. I took over for that person because they no longer felt they could handle the responsibilities too much, and they're older and settling into kind of a very retirement oriented life, so became too much stress and too much for her to do.
So that's
over, and it's still kind of in a state of hiatus, and we're looking for leadership and things like that. But there are a lot of big plans.
And that's American Humanist Association, is that correct?
No, it is not. It's just a meetup group. However, we are looking into filing for a 501c3 and joining the Humanist Association.
Oh, cool.
You have to have a 501c3 nonprofit membership to be able to do.
Nice. All right.
Cool. So humanism, that's kind of another angle that often ties in with atheism. Would you say that they're like mutually exclusive or anything, or do you think there's actually kind of a bind there?
I
Like
think they
what's
kind of go hand in hand, really. I know a lot of atheists that have adopted the phrase. I don't know who said it first. I'm a humanist with a capital H and an atheist with a lowercase a. Might have been Sam Harris or I don't know, one of those guys. But caring about other people, I think, is important, and there have been people that I have met that have been atheists that were pretty lone wolf, and their ideas about humanity in general, and very nihilistic, or just inadherent to any kind of philosophy, whatsoever, towards their fellow human beings. But I'm big on caring about other people. I think, if you are an atheist, or consider yourself more an atheist or a humanist, you should still be altruistic and have some basic sense of empathy or compassion. So
Yeah.
again, we're breaching on the full spectrum of what an atheist is, and I don't want to say that everybody is this way or that way, because definitely there's a full range of gray variation between the white and the black there.
Yeah. The reason I brought that up is because I do definitely think that there's a strong correlation between atheism and humanism, but I don't think humanism is all about atheism either, because you'd absolutely see a humanist Christian, if a Christian is following all the good parts of the Bible, typically they're going to be what you would call a humanist. If they follow word for word, maybe not, but and of course, if they just cherry pick the things that follow their belief set, and some of those beliefs are kind of on the negative thing, like we should throw rocks at gay people, that sort of thing, then yeah.
I think all those good things are common sense things, and you don't need a book for them, really. But
exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, evolution has shown us that morality exists in other animals, and there's no reason to think that, I mean, actually, I did see a recent study that suggested that maybe apes have some sense of maybe a religion, but there's no actual proof that they have any kind of like central guiding principles that they will definitely be evil without.
Yeah.
Well, if we're talking about bonobo chimpanzees, I believe that religion is sex.
Sign me up.
World. So. And everything seems to work out pretty well for them. So
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's interesting that people say that you couldn't have morality without religion. It doesn't really. I don't understand that.
I think you can be more moral without a religion.
That's a good point. That the religion, if it's pushing you into a box, that you're kind of forced into it, and you're doing it because you adhere to a doctrine, versus if you have no religion and you still do those things, wouldn't that be much more powerful?
Well, you have to think about it this way. When you are being taught a religion, you're being taught how to polarize your own morality. So it's a black and white thing every time. There is no gray variation. There is no, let's think about it because it doesn't really fall into this kind of a good or bad thing. It's a whole separate instance that I have to think about. No, it's throwing out your own rational thought and just leaning to the side you choose and cherry pick it.
Yeah, there's a saying that morality is doing right regardless of what you're told, and religion is doing what you're told regardless of what is right.
Ooh, it's pretty good.
Right. I mean, you take the golden rule, which is prevalent in what, probably 80 to 85% of all religions across the globe. And there's like over 9,000 religions, right? And the golden rule is always prevalent in there, just the same as divine birth or resurrection is, or something like that. But that golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is a selfish interpretation. It's what you want that other person to treat you like. And then there's the platinum rule, which goes a little bit beyond that and says, do unto others the way they would want you to do unto them. And that's the big difference I see with morality in a religion or a non-religion. It's selfish. It's all about me being religious and what I get when I die.
Yeah. It's a good point.
I think the golden rule is easier to interpret for most people. They can easily know what would hurt them or make them feel good, but then the problem with that is it's largely subjective. But you know, like you said, with the platinum rule, there's a drawback to that, in that because of that subjectivity that I just mentioned, it's really hard to know what's going to make person A happy versus person B. They might be in direct conflict with each other, and
but that promotes, I would argue this way, I would argue that the platinum rule would at least open up a person into thinking about other cultures, about the way other people feel besides themselves, and get a respect for who that person really is. It's an outreach, more of an inside judgment.
Yeah, that's a good point.
No, that's true. It encourages empathy.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, how can you judge somebody without knowing anything about them? And or if
sounds like Daryl Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of philosophize about, you know, how to treat people. Like, what's the best way to go about morality?
Right.
You know,
but then we're lumping ourselves with the people that are judgmental on both sides. We're adhering to a philosophy if we're all agreeing, you know, that this is the best way to do things. Well,
right.
You know, I would say it's always subjective. There is no one answer that should apply to everybody. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own journey. And I think people should just try to be more understanding, more than, you know, say, oh, well, they should just be like this, or they should just be like me.
I 100% agree that.
Yeah. Morality is not only a personal thing, but it really should be a fluid thing. It's something you shouldn't get complacent in and carve into stone or whatever, you know, because it's.
Well, and then, you know, you think about
should always be questioning it. It's a never-ending thing to question your own morality. Hey,
yeah.
Did I do the right thing? Did I make the right judgment then? Not, because I believe this, I know I made the right decision.
Yeah,
right?
that's kind of what I was saying. Like, what is right today may be different. You know, it may change. It's an ever-evolving thing as you experience new things and learn things and fail. That it something that you think is the right decision when you're 12 is not going to be the same when you're 52.
Or you might be subjected to a new experience. Yeah, I mean, you might have made that decision when you were older, but you suddenly you got immersed in a different world where you discovered, oh wow, that totally doesn't apply to any of these people that I'm talking to right now. Why would I even thinking that way before?
Yeah, the cultural differences and things like that. Yeah,
the fact that you haven't done or been in that position or place before, where the ruling you made previously, it doesn't seem to apply anymore. I'm hard to try to think of something where hard pressed to think of something where I could give an example right at the moment. Maybe you could. I'm not sure. But if I think about it, I'm gonna write it down on my paper here.
All right, good.
Okay.
What do you think about that, Casey? That
oh man, that's kind of a big topic, isn't it?
It's like we started off.
What's that?
We started off really simple, and then You know, it seemed very clear, and now this is
Yeah,
getting into some.
we're talking about like what morality is, and it's
Yeah,
just getting huge, and it's really interesting, of course. But
deep philosophical
yeah,
territory, but it's good, and I like that.
I
Yeah.
think we'll come back full circle though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah, speaking of the full circle, yeah, we should kind of tie it together. Um, this idea of morality being kind of a fluid thing. It's interesting when you get into these certain circles that are typically, you would think of them as a-religious as well as atheists. They all almost take on this doctrine of sorts where, you know, their particular brand of morality is kind of set in stone, I think.
And each group is different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and
And all in conflict with one another.
right. Yeah.
I think we have unlocked the key of how you cannot hoard cats together, as in like atheists, and get them all to agree. Because I think it does. I think that it's a basic human flaw to just want to stick to the group that you like or that you feel that you fit into more. And that's where people tend to go. And then they just don't care anymore about the other groups that might have equally or more even important things to offer to them in their own personal growth and experience with being non-religious.
Well, and that's a good point, because if your philosophy and doctrine is correct, it should be able to withstand any challenge from anywhere. So why not go explore a little bit, talk to other people, you know, attend events or whatever, and, you know, experience some things and challenge your own beliefs if you're interested in facts and logic.
Comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and I think people have a tendency that everybody kind of wants to be part of a group or have you know, belong in some way. But, you know, I think that can also come with some negative effects. Like, I think about my own self, like I am, like I said, atheist agnostic, and I don't feel a desire to attend any events. I just am what I am. And I just believe what I believe, and I explore and learn and change, and there it is. But I think maybe some people, when they're very religious, especially if you come from a highly religious background that involves that kind of connection with a community of people, if you realize one day, this doesn't make sense anymore, and you walk away from it, now you kind of have a hole in your soul, I guess. And you know, and so you have to connect with other people, and you find these groups. You may find the wrong group, somebody that might lead you in the wrong direction, but you connect with like-minded people, and then it becomes its own replacement religion, or maybe even a cult, possibly. And I think it just kind of feeds itself too, like people coming out of this religiosity and wanting some sense of belonging, and they get taken advantage of by bad actors, I think. Maybe, I don't know. I what do I know? I just
as being a co-organizer of AFTS since 2010, I can definitely relate to what you're saying. And you have people that join your group, and maybe all they want to talk about is politics, because that's the thing that's most on their mind all the time, and they're very passionate about. However, when you come together as a group, you not everybody's going to agree.
true.
And there are certain ways of even running the group that, as a leader, you have to say, okay, what's going to work for everybody, so that we're not going to ruffle anyone's feathers, and they'll come back. People come up with these silly ideas like a talking stick. You know, hey, I'm holding the talking stick. I got my 5 minutes. I can say whatever I want. And that could be even worse, you know.
If you need a talking stick, there might be a little bit of conflict there, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I think about other sorts of groups. If you joined a group of artists or musicians or people interested in, I don't know, underwater welding or something like that, that's what you'd focus on. It doesn't matter what your politics are or what your beliefs in general. You're focused on that one thing. So if you have an atheist group, that's what people focus on, talking about atheism, maybe your experiences, your journey, how you got there, where you came from. Those are important things. But I think it does, when, if it's small, things tend to work pretty well. But as soon as it becomes big, it gets like corporatized and it becomes a completely different beast at that point.
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
I think there's I talk about this a little bit in my book, Beating the Odds Without Any Gods. Check it out on Amazon.
There you go.
Good book, by the way.
Shameless plug. But I talk about this statistic that was going around about how religious people live longer, and there's a school of thought that thinks that the thing that might be contributing to that is the sense of community that people get from religion. You have churches and synagogues and mosques and congregations of people that you go and you become very close with, and you typically do that throughout your life. You carry it into your old age. You've got a bigger support network in your more fragile years.
That's a valid point, and I think you're right. Human beings are social animals. We do need to be together. We do need to feel that we're worth something to other people. We do need to show our own self, or have other people realize our worth, or want to be acknowledged for being a good person, or things like that. But I think that's just one part of living to a good age, being in religion. I think the other part is that I'm just going to say it like this. In my view, in a theology, you're deluding yourself that somebody's taking care of you. And when I was religious and I accepted Christ into my life, then I did get an emotional state of what I felt then. And the best way I could relate to it is to say it felt like it was the hottest summer day and I was going to sleep in a bed that was very comfortable with the coolest white linen sheets. And I didn't have a care in the world. I didn't care about politics or anything, because the boulder, the weight, my burden of being afraid of anything, or worrying about the future, or what would happen, to my parents or anything like that, that was all lifted off of me. And all of a sudden I was carefree. I feel great. I'm going to be Tom Cruise and jump up and down on Oprah's couch. and I think that mental state as a human being, if you are non-religious, you still need something there that convinces you. You still kind of have to trick yourself that the world is still a good place. The universe isn't cold and indifferent to you. There are still things that are positive out there. There are so wondrous things that you can connect to, especially in astronomy for me. But
oh yeah,
there are those things that help you make life is okay. Life is great. There's so much to look forward to. There's so much more things I can experience, other cultures, other foods, and whatever is your fascination.
Yeah, witnessing the world move forward in new technologies and new horizons and all that stuff. Like, you don't necessarily need a religion for that.
Right. So if you still have a good sense of community and social interaction, if you still have a positive view, I would argue that any atheist could live just as long as a religious person, and that you would have to make that study more in a case like that by looking at those kind of individuals. What do they have? What is their focus? What are the things that they view that are important in life? How social are they? What are their group of friends like?
Yeah.
And And I bet you
Yeah.
you could draw a correlation there, premise, but
I've always kind of made the argument that sociological studies are you kind of have to take them all with a grain of salt because it's impossible to control every variable.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, there's just way too many things that can go into it.
Do you know what that study, who that study was from, what that source was?
I'm sure I have the source cited in my book. I would have to go
Oh,
look it up, but
I'd be interested to know who was behind that and what they used as their study group and what their
yeah.
control was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
there's a lot of liberties taken with that, I think.
that's okay. I mean, you're right. I think you could, as an atheist, live a very happy, pleasant, carefree life, as long as you don't get too cynical. Because I think cynicism could be a possibility. And of course, if you're coming from a religious background, you may be inclined to want to latch on to that kind of community, the feeling of bonding with other like-minded people. And that could be abused. Somebody could take advantage of that. And
Yes.
that's the concern I have, because there are people who will take advantage of people like that to whatever, I don't know, whatever they want to do,
Sure, just because somebody is an atheist and they said, I'm going to go drive you to, the convenience store and not rape you, you should believe them.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's just the same as, like, I'll give you an example. My mom, she was very into her Christianity, and one time she noticed this man in her neighborhood who she really didn't know anything about, but he said he was a Christian too, and he was telling her how hard his life was, and she felt empathy for him. She felt sympathetic, and she lent him her car. Well, that car disappeared for 2 weeks.
Whoa.
And when they found it, it had an empty tank of gas and a whole bunch of chocolate pudding all over the back seat. So I don't know what happened there, but
Whoa.
yeah, you can get taken
Jeez.
advantage of by an atheist just the same as you could a person who's touting the Christianity or other faith. It's not.
Yeah. And
People have
it probably stems from the same basic human needs and desires, that of connecting with people and forming a tribe or a community. I think that's sort of a natural product of our biology, I guess. I don't know. Casey could talk to that probably a little bit more than I could.
Yeah, there's definitely like neurotransmitter release that comes from just interactions with people, the serotonin, dopamine, all that stuff. But then you get into stuff like
Oxytocin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Get into stuff like that where it creates these really strong bonds, and there's definitely like a biological aspect to social interaction, and it's not exclusive to religion. You can get it from like what you said, like an underwater welding class or whatever, anything where you've got a group of people with similar interests that can bond over something. You don't have to go seeking out your local church to find that.
No, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it can be argued that you could be spending that hour doing a more productive hobby with other people. I mean, not that hey, if you want to go to church, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah, I think bonding with people is valuable. I mean, it is. If you look at it from a evolutionary framework, it's kind of the reason we're still here and why we're so good at what we do. I think building societies is an evolution, a survival.
lost connection.
Uh-oh. Connection issues.
Yeah, that can happen sometimes.
Yeah,
I think you're back.
We'll cut it out.
Oh, I'm back.
All right. Hey, welcome back. Yeah.
It says my internet connection is unstable. I have to put it on meds.
Uh-oh. No, you're good now. I see your bars are white, so it's good.
Huh.
You were red
Right.
a second ago.
I think I need to yell at my wife. She's probably on her iPad and downloading a movie.
It's the NSA. They don't like us talking about things. They start throttling things. It always happens. But yeah, I think it's that whole kind of community building is a survival trait of the human species, and probably others as well, other animals.
Well, yeah, when you boil it down, we really can't survive on our own. Like, as an individual nomad out in the wild, there will be a point where you face an adversary, be it natural or otherwise, that you just cannot, it's insurmountable by yourself. You know, there's always going to be something that you need a community for.
We could open up a whole other can of worms with the social media fanaticism that we have today.
Oh, wow.
That people are online on Facebook talking to each other more than they are in real life.
I want to talk about that, but I gotta run to the bathroom real quick, so I'll be right back.
Yeah, that's a great little digression to go off on, because I really don't know how to feel about that as far as like positive or negative, because I'm in touch with people that I haven't seen in so many years, and you know, geographically or whatever, you know, there's that island effect where I wouldn't otherwise be in contact with them.
True, but that's just because it's a distance thing.
I mean, distance or schedules or, you know, just life happening or whatever. But I do think there's a real positive aspect to social media in that. But the whole zombie effect is very concerning, you know?
I think social media has another negative aspect, and that is you're more open to be quick judgmentally, where, you know, somebody might say something, they might mean it in jest, but you're not there to read their face, so you don't take that cue that you would normally take, being, you know, socially there, person to person. And even though that person may have known you for years, may have worked with you, may have been in close circles, been part of your leadership teams, and knew you very well for a long time, suddenly they can just reverse course and turn on you in an instant and think you're just being a complete jerk.
Yeah.
On purposefully gaslighting something that they're talking about when you're just joking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like
that is probably the crowning reason why we do this vidcast instead of a podcast, because the things that we say, the English, well, the human languages all kind of rely on visual cues, like what I'm doing with my hands right now, my face, everything, you know, everything that I'm doing visually is adding to what I'm saying, and you cannot get that in social media. I mean, unless you're just video chatting with somebody, but that's obviously not the predominant use.
And of course, you know, social media has become so politicized that you've got everything out there under the sun that, you know, everybody all of a sudden cares about, even though it has nothing to do with them. But oh my gosh, yeah, Colin Kaepernick, oh, you know, oh my gosh, the salmon, you know, like, yeah, okay, great. That's great that you feel about that. Do I really want to listen to you rant about that 24/7 on Facebook? No, not really. Ignore it.
Yeah, and I kind of, the problem I have with social media, though I think it does bring people together from all around the world. I mean, I have family and old friends I connect with from a long time ago. I think it connects everybody instantly, but at the same time, we're so alone. Like that, you're not actually connecting with people. You don't have real interaction. It's memes and news bites and, you know, little funny pictures and stuff like that. It isn't real interaction.
And you're ruled by that and how you interact in the future if you fall into that kind of realm, and that
Yeah.
it becomes your world. And like next thing you know, oh, did you see this meme? And to a person you just met.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what? Huh?
Well, it's sort of the Twitter, I think, honestly, is the worst form of social media because it
There's somebody
condenses.
making that worse right now.
Oh, it is so bad. It condenses complex thought and interaction into just a few sentences, and you know, people go crazy on it, and there isn't any actual dialogue. It's just everybody screaming at each other, basically. And
the meme thing I find kind of interesting, actually, because it's not unlike hieroglyphics or something like that. You know, it's kind of a full circle language thing. It actually does have its merits in communication.
It's
There's
communication.
Yeah, there's almost something mind-opening about communicating through a meme in response to something, because you have to stop and think about it and interpret it.
Right.
well, exactly.
But in a way, those memes are the facial cues, the hand gestures, the expressions of social media.
Yeah,
exactly.
You have to stop and say, why am I seeing this frowny Jackie Chan face with the hands raised up? Oh, they're really frustrated with me right now. Okay. Maybe I should just cool down a notch and think about it. That's like social media's way of addressing that to me.
Yeah. Well,
a picture.
Today I did.
A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, just today I did that very thing. I was asking somebody what this big deal is about this 6x9 guy ratting people out or something, and
I don't know.
Rapper, he's like snitching on people in court or something, and everyone making memes about him and stuff. And I was like, what? Why is everyone picking on this guy? And somebody was like, well, here they threw a meme out at me, and they're like, here's what Snoop Dogg thinks of it. And he was saying how Martha Stewart didn't snitch on anyone. She just did her jail time and you know, paid her dues or whatever. And then I was thinking to myself, like, I really want to say, like, well, Snoop Dogg's opinion of Martha Stewart is a little bit like Emperor Palpatine. good. And I just threw a meme out there of Emperor Palpatine. Good. And it got my point across.
And because Snoop Dogg is the Dalai Lama, that we have to suddenly listen to the way he thinks.
Yeah, I have such a huge problem with people. This is a bit of a digression, but you know, people paying so much attention to celebrity opinion as if that is what matters. You know, celebrities talk about abortion or about vaccines or about gun control or about, you know, you name it, space exploration or something. Like, they don't know anything about those things. They're just talking smack. Huh?
Or anything more than I do, or
yeah. I would trust an expert. You know, if an actor wants to talk about acting, I will totally listen to what they have to say,
especially if they're a good actor.
Yeah. But if an actor starts talking about, you know, something that they have no experience with, I don't care. Who are you? You have no authority. But yet somehow it's all the rage. Like, everybody has to listen to them instead of the people who actually know what they're talking about.
The obvious exception to that is Jenny McCarthy is an expert on vaccines and autism. So she looked at Google extensively.
Oh yeah, exactly. But that's a good example of exactly what I'm talking about. Like, somebody who doesn't know anything about anything. I mean, you know, it's like if Casey, if you started trying to tell me something about programming or electrical engineering, or I started trying to tell you how biology works. Like that is, no, I don't know anything about biology. Well, very little. You know, it's like, why would we listen to that? Just
Right.
because we're well known. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, there was my little divergence from the topic, but I think it needs to be said.
You know, it's kind of interesting that we started talking about memes because I don't think very many people really know this, but the concept of a meme has been around for over 40 years.
Didn't Dawkins coin that word?
Exactly. It was coined by Richard Dawkins, a biologist and extremely famous atheist. Look at that full circle.
And now used more by religious people than any other sect.
Nice work on that, Casey.
Yeah,
background. Yeah, that's good. Nice.
But yeah, like he is a biologist first and foremost, and he created the term meme to basically say that there's cultural information that gets passed on through mimicry, and that's, I mean, that is effectively what we now think of as a meme. It's in electronic form rather than, you know, I saw that chimp scratch himself and then pick a flea off and eat it. That must be what I need to do. You know, that sort of, you know, mimicry that, you know, we use to learn social cues and cultural, you know, mores and stuff like that.
At least it has stayed true to its original form, and religion hasn't tried to hijack it yet.
Yeah, and memes evolve too, like a living organism. You know, it starts with one person coining a phrase, I guess, or, you know, capturing some sort of sentiment in an image, and people run with it. They add their own things, and it's changed and morphed, and, you know, it's applied for all kinds of different situations. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is used for comedic effect,
Sure,
more often than not. But, you know, like, yeah, there was like that feeling cute might something later, I don't know. You remember that one? It ran around for a while.
no.
And I'm on Imager a lot, and I don't remember that one.
Yeah, there's this random stuff that basically people just use for comedy, but then there are the people that use memes to kind of like take a poignant quote or something and spread that around, and there's some use to that, I think.
Isn't comedy the best way to address difficult subjects?
Not
like
religion.
A difficult topic?
Not religion. You best not.
Well, maybe you may not change anybody's mind, but, you know, I think that is the thing. Like, you know, humor and such, it allows you to kind of approach these scary or controversial or difficult topics more easily.
I think it all depends on the intent.
True.
Yeah, like Seth MacFarlane on Family Guy, when he talks about like the Church of Latter-day Saints definition of Jesus, and they flash back to Jesus popping out of the water like a dream of genie, and as the music goes on in the background, it's like doink, and there's a rabbit there, doink, there's a dinosaur there, doink. I mean, like, that sense of humor. I mean, I know people that are very, very religious in that religion who thought it was hysterical.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's this idea that I have where you can't really, how do I say this? I think comedy is the best way to beat something difficult. No matter how controversial it might be to joke about. I mean, I got through cancer by joking about it, you know, making all kinds of wisecracks about my, you know, eventual demise or things like that, you know, morbid humor, but it was what I needed to lighten the situation. And And I think in certain circumstances, it also is a great tool for fighting hatred and bigotry by making jokes about that. Like,
Yeah.
Mel Brooks, Blazing Saddles. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah. Classic.
that, I mean, people nowadays with these hipster humanists and stuff, they look at that movie and they think it's racist. It's making fun of racism. You know, it's pointing out all the ridiculousness of it.
Yeah.
Making
Okay. So here's the thing. I think the aspect of comedy, what makes it effective at tackling a difficult thing, depends on whether you are mocking a subject, the thing you're talking about, like racism, or whether you're mocking an individual.
Right.
That's the defining line, I think.
It goes back to intent, and if you're pointing it at or directing it at an individual, and trying to be offensive, trying to offend them, then yeah, that's not going to work. But George Carlin was a master of it. He just pointed out the ridiculousness of things and the hypocrisy of them, and why anybody would want to do anything like that. You know?
Yeah.
Well,
Carlin's a good example. Yeah.
And,
you know what?
and you can bet that there were people in that audience that were deeply religious and said, "Oh yeah, we do that. Ha, that's awesome. That's great. It's funny." You know.
Yep.
I mean, there is the concept of the roast, however, where you say some pretty horrendous things about people, like.
But that's different because that's solicited. That's something you're going into that situation,
Right.
knowing people are going to just slam you, and that's okay. If you didn't ask for it, then it does change the game a little bit. But it does depend on whether you're talking about an individual directly or talking about a feature that an individual possesses, like comedy about people's weight, or like in the case of Blazing Saddles, the skin color and racism and stuff. That's different than like pointing at a person and making fun of them. Yeah. But I think it is something that's conflated nowadays too much, and unfortunately so, that people connect those things too much. And yeah, it's not a good thing, because I agree with you, Casey, that humor is the way to overcome obstacles like that.
Yeah.
And if that humor is directed towards you just because you happen to be part of a group and you are easily offended by it, then I agree that you should be the person to question why you're so offended by it. Why does that make you angry? The burden isn't really, even though there may be no ill will, the burden isn't on the person pointing out the comical view. The person's on you to figure out why you're so butthurt about it.
Yeah, because you should be able to laugh at things. I've been called a nerd all my life. I have glasses and I like science and things like that. And if somebody makes fun of nerds, even if they point at me and say, "Hey, you're a nerd," I could be like, "Hi, yeah, totally." But I've been around a few years.
Yeah, I definitely ran into the same thing where I was very sensitive to the word nerd for a number of years from all the bullying I went through. And at some point I realized, you have the power to take away the magnitude of effect that word has. Like a bully feeds off of your negative emotions.
Yeah.
And your reactions.
Yeah, and your reactions. And if you turn that around and your reaction is in jest, or basically letting it roll off your back and joining in the joke or something, that totally like diminishes their power. Like it absorbs it and it redefines it and it shoots it right back.
Like social Aikido.
Basically.
There's also the buddy side of that thing, right? Well, you know, you and I might be friends, and I'll joke about something like you, and it would probably be more in confidence rather than in front of other people, you know, out of respect or something. But that joke is more meant out of a love and a bond, rather than, you know, trying to humiliate or destroy somebody's, you know, ego or something. And more often than not, I think that people that are sensitive see them all as hurtful comments, rather than, oh, I was just joking with you because he likes you, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to know your audience too. Like, some people certainly can't handle certain humor, but then there's others that can handle like some pretty crass stuff, but that makes it so much funnier in the end, you know, because like it's got that shock effect, you know, like
I
George
would be
Carlin.
on the crass side of things, I think. That's where I tend to fall in, and I do see humor in just how silly people can be about stuff, and I'm usually one of those people that will point it out. Maybe I shouldn't do that, but
I think the important thing is to learn to be able to laugh at yourself.
True.
And see the humor in just the way everything works. Like, it's just a big giant joke.
Yeah.
And it's okay. You know, we should be laughing together, not at each other.
But people do have insecurities, and, you know, that's something that from a person to person, face to face, I might get that cue, whereas on Facebook or, you know, something, I wouldn't.
Yeah. And of course, you know, like I said, know your audience. The only way you can know that is to test the waters. And then if they don't like something, just don't do it anymore. But, you know, I mean, I had this friend.
Yourself. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I had this friend, for instance, who she was pregnant and found out her baby had a cleft palate. And they were, you know, obviously stressed out about that. It was the result of a medication, and there was all kinds of drama around that. And
oh no,
they were planning their baby shower, and she was like, what kind of games should we do? And I was like, how about pin the lip on the baby?
Oh man.
Okay.
And she loved it. She laughed her ass off, you know. And
I was going to say, like, look at the bright side. He'll be able to drink through a straw without opening his mouth.
Yeah, and see, this is the thing. Person to person, if you're having a direct conversation with somebody, these kinds of things can be understood. And they're individual and concise.
Right.
But on social media, it exists in perpetuity. That's, you know, this brings it to that whole cancel culture thing.
Right.
Like, somebody said something a long time ago when they were 16 years old, and now, you know, whatever, they're well known or something, and somebody digs up dirt from a long time ago. It was a completely innocuous statement, didn't mean anything, but then, you know, out of context, they pull it out, and now it sounds really bad.
Right.
And I think that's one of the harms of social media, is the context is completely absent.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. Because, you know, you look at something posted 12 years ago or something like that, you don't know the context, and people don't even look at it. They just see the statement that was made, and then the person reposting that statement applies their own context to it.
Right.
Oh, yeah, look at this bigoted thing that person X said, you know, a decade ago.
My problem is people only read the headlines. The headlines are written sensationalistically, and then they start adding. It's like that whole telephone game thing, where people just start adding their own spin to it, and before long, it's gone viral as something completely way off base. You know?
True.
Yeah. I think my problem is, like, when some philosophical thing comes up on Facebook, it's like, I have thought about this very much. I have thought about this deeply, but there's just no way I'm writing a 14-page essay right now to you to express my exact thoughts on this, because there's no way that I'm going to be able to explain it to you in any other way. So I'm just going to
Well,
try.
there is kitchen sink microscopy.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That I think what's lost today is critical thinking and skepticism. When I see something sensational, like a headline or something like that, I'm immediately skeptical. Like, oh, that sounds huge. Like, okay, there's got to be more going on. But a lot of people don't do that. They're just like, oh my God, like we're being invaded by aliens or whatever. They just run with whatever is said. And that's bad. Like, we should be skeptical. We should be questioning things. We should be looking for the context of what happened and think critically.
Yeah.
And that's discouraged now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm no fan of Trump, and he is kind of a terrible person in my opinion, but there are definitely some examples of people taking his words and throwing them way out of context.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's this recent thing where people are saying that he threatened the life of a whistleblower, and I read it over and over again, and I'm like, no, he did not. He said he wanted to meet his whistleblower.
Yeah, and that's an example of people.
Well, no, he
didn't
insinuate that, back in the day, certain people who were like that person got treated much differently. Hint, hint, wink, 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 nudge, nudges. Say no more, right? That did happen.
But it's like we've been talking about, when you start insinuating things that are in written word, it's like, how much are you painting on top of this?
Well, and that's the thing, like, you have to apply or understand that there's a little bit of nuance, that things aren't necessarily black and white. There's shades of gray, and everything is a shade of gray. And when somebody tells you something is black or it's white, it probably isn't. There's something in between. There's more details. There's stuff they're not telling you, and you should seek that out, or at the very least, be skeptical of what they have to say, because chances are they're probably trying to play you.
And an atheist will never, ever like to hear you tell them that they are polarizing something.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
But they do.
Yeah. Yeah. And
wow, we went all over the place here, didn't we?
Oh, this is an awesome conversation. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, we're at like an hour and 10 minutes. So
I was like, whoa, minute 10.
Yeah, minute. Yeah. We were
hyperspeed.
Yeah. Ludicrous speed. No, this is good. We definitely need to have another conversation, because this is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. I enjoyed myself. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Oh, it was good having you on. This is an awesome conversation. Oh yeah.
So real quick, why don't you give another plug for your you're looking for some leadership roles in this humanist venture you're putting together in Auburn, Washington, right?
Well, Freethinker group, Auburn Freethought Society, and you can find that on meetup.com. And it has little atheist A with a little white owl in the middle for the logo. Most of the time we just have book, movie, politics, whatever you feel like talking about, kind of like a meeting where everybody gets 5 minutes to talk about, and towards the end, if there's something that we all feel like talking about, we go into it more. But we're looking to get into other things, some community service, some beach cleanups, things like that, some more environmentally savvy things. Supporting our community, food drives we've done in the past, and those were very successful. Lately, trying to get people to organize the meetings has been a problem. So we are definitely looking for more people that will accept that sort of a role and run meetings. I certainly don't have the time I would like to commit to it now, but give me another year and I'm going to be all over it. And yes, that's what we're looking for. And it's a wonderful group. We really haven't had too much trouble with members joining that were problematic. And when we did encounter those type of people, we would tell them exactly why. And you know, if you want to come, that's fine, but it's not your pulpit to preach whatever you want. And all of it is your time, that kind of thing. It's for everybody to share. And really more than anything, what the original organizer intended the group to be is a landing place for people coming out of theology, especially those that have been ousted out of their social communities, people that have been threatened with bodily harm, have been excommunicated from their church, had their houses burned down,
Wow.
have been threatened to be killed. I've heard all of these stories at this group, and it's amazing. Some of the people and the intellectuals that we have had come in, like Bob Seidensticker, for example, he's also an author. He's also one of the bloggers he does Cross-Examined. I don't know if you're familiar with that. He was a steady member of the group for a long time, and many others just like him that are very accomplished people. And the conversation gets really, really good sometimes. But we need to build it up more and get the members going back to the meetings again.
Is there a talking stick?
No, there is no talking stick. That lasted 1 month, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing some good stuff there. That's awesome. Oh yeah.
We have about 170 members. I'm looking to double that, and I'm doing some print work, more brochures and things like that, and dropping them off public libraries and see what we can get going. And of course, 501c3 membership is, I think, an added bonus, and joining the Humanist Association will be that we're a charter of their group and represented on their page, could drive some people in our local community that look at them first and say, oh, we have a free thought group right here. So we'll see. I have high hope.
Cool.
Nice.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe sometime I could organize a little like talk about my my book with, you know, facing adversity as an atheist. You know, when you don't have that church group to lean back on or whatever. Maybe that would be inspiring to some people. Going
so there's like 3 stages to the group. And the way it's been run, you know, there's a crawl stage where people were showing up in a living room, and there was maybe 10 people max at that time, and then walk, and then, you know, the walk stage, there was, you know, logos, shirts being made. The website was worked on much more. There's a Facebook page all of a sudden, and more people are liking, more people are joining, and then came to the run stage, and we ran for quite a few years. And then when the owner couldn't really attend or organize the meetups anymore, and I wasn't available, and other people fell out of the group that were leaders, then you know, it went right back to a cross stage. So we've got to start from there, and then maybe when we get to the run stage, we bring some big names, you know, like you or Bob or somebody else that has a lot to say about things. And,
I'm not a big name.
Then maybe you're in the walk stage.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely hope to see you in that run stage. And
thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on and deep sink diving with us into all kinds of topics.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Does that mean our time is up?
Yeah, we should probably wrap it up to.
Yeah, we're a little bit over an hour. That's good. Yeah.
Fair enough.
We'll come back to it again. I promise.
Okay. For sure. So, you know, thank you, Steve, for coming on, and don't forget, everybody, to like, share, and subscribe, and check out our new sub-channel, Kitchen Sink University, where we are teaching what little things we know to try to help people out, and we look forward to your contributions to that.
Yeah, very little things that we know. But yeah, have a good night, everybody.